folks. This is Randy Savig. He is our Missouri State Director. There was kind of a little mini coup going on yesterday about the Assistant Executive Director position was going to be open. They wanted to give it to him, and he was like, I ain't got time for that crap. The guys in the group, our Assistant Executive Director, he says his main priority is to make sure nothing happens to me so he don't have to take over. And I kind of really, if you didn't notice, he was the little short guy with the big Santa Claus beard running around. And I think he got the gray hair because of me. So. But anyway, Randy does a lot of audio work. He's one of our audio gurus. I always refer to him when I've got something that I need to have gone through. He keeps me grounded on things because I'm like, man, I got a Bigfoot on there. No, you got this. Well, crap, okay. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Randy. We've known each other about 10 years now, haven't we? So he is an asset to the group, and we really appreciate having him in here.
All right, good morning. I know that we're running a little bit over time, and it's not something that I'm not known to be light-winded, so we still might be a little bit later getting to lunch than what we anticipated. Again, my name is Randy Savig, and I am the Missouri State Director. What types of sounds do we have what we think are Bigfoot related? There's two basic categories that this all can fall into. One is vocalizations. We all know what vocalizations are. We do it when we talk. The other one is more stuff that we can do with the environment. I mean, that's where your rock clacks would come in, things like that. For myself, I put vocalizations into two categories. One is what's called long calls, and it doesn't have to do with how long they are making the vocalization. It has to do with how far the vocalization can be heard. And the other one is what I call short calls. That's going to be something more that you've got to be pretty close to them in order to hear. Some of your grunts, some of the mimicking that they do, that type of thing would end up being with the short calls. Now, again, the other category, the non-vocalization, again, that is where they'll use rocks. That's where the knocks come in. You know, maybe tree breaks that we encounter when we're out there at times, thinking that it is got to do with Bigfoot. Those type of sounds are with that. These are a couple of examples of long calls. Anybody that has been around knows what I'm talking about. You'll get your screams and your howls. This first one was recorded in my research area up in southwestern Missouri. Now, when this one was recorded, you'll hear a couple of what sound like whoops, and that's what I believe they are whoops. And generally, because they're so short and they don't seem to travel very far, I was reluctant to put this in. However, something responded to the whoops. So I'm wondering, maybe those are going a little bit further than what I always thought. The first audio, please. And again, this is not that untypical when you're in an area where they're active. Hold on. Hold on. Now, if you listen careful, there's another distant howl involved with this. For whatever reason, the speaker is acting up and doing some you know, again, there were some different howls there, and some people say, well, wasn't that a coyote? And again, I'm not saying that there's not a possibility that's a known animal, but one thing that I do diligently is any vocalization that I catch. I've got a library on my computer of, hey, let's call them stole from other websites that I can compare vocalizations to. There's a lot of college sites out there that you can compare things with. And again, I'll go ahead and I'll compare those, and I keep a running file on the spectrogram also, not just what I can hear, but what I can see of the calls of known animals. And again, once in a while, I can get caught, but I try not to. I try to diligently go through everything to make sure it doesn't match a known animal. Now, this next one is one that we don't get a lot, but it's about the 4th or 5th time we've recorded this in our research area. This was one of the times when it was on a drop box to where nobody was there. I take the grandkids out, and Bernie takes his granddaughter out quite a little. And some nights when they get bored and don't have nothing to do, we'll tell them, go ahead and scream, see if something answers. And at times, I mean, it's not every time by any means, but we get some responses. And again, I don't know if this is the one that people keep saying, well, it sounds like a woman getting murdered scream. I've never heard a woman get murdered. I don't know what the kind of scream she might have. But this is one, again, that does not match known type critters. Go ahead. Now again, if you listen, there'll be a second one. There you go. There seems to be 2 of them going. Now you can hear the water in the background. That's one of the places I put a lot of recorders, is where I know there's good water, because the critters have got to come up to it. Now, one thing that I get questioned a lot about, you know, I guess I'm an audio guy, so what could these vocalizations possibly mean? You know, and the reality is, I don't know. We've never seen or been able to study in context why these vocalizations might happen. Now, if we compare it to known primates, both human and regular primates like chimps, gorillas, that first one, where there were long howls, they seem to, most of the time when primates do that, it's got food related. You know, your chimps, your orangutans, bonobos, gorillas, they'll use a long distance vocalization when food is found. You know, our mamas used to call us home by hollering, and we could be a half mile away. We might not hear what she says, but we were booking her butt home. We knew we had to get there. You know, so again, if I have to give some success to that, which we do use in the field, we do some howls and different things. If it is meaning food, that's why that can be kind of successful. Hey, I wasn't able to find any squirrels out here, so hey, that one sounds like you might have a deer. I'm just grabbing examples. I can't say for sure. Either caught one or found roadkill, and they're giving the dinner sign, and that's why that can kind of seem to work with research as it brings them in. However, a lot of times when it brings them in, they don't stay there. So again, if they come up and found the dinner bell's not accurate, they got to go back out and go back to work again. The second one, these screams. The one time that we actually had a little context to it was we had the grandkids out with us before Christmas. My daughter called, oh, we haven't wrapped any presents. Can you take the kids for the night? Sure, we'll go to the woods. You know, I mean, any excuse to get to the woods. And we had left one truck about a mile away, and Bernie had walked in to see if something followed us in, you know, which does happen occasionally. There's a lot of reports of, you know, I saw one in my rear view mirror, that type of thing. So that's what we did. Well, about 9:30, 10 o'clock that night, the kids were getting real bored, and Bernie said, I think I'll go get my truck and bring it here to camp, and then, you know, be ready when we go. And, well, I used that as an excuse to pawn the grandkids off of them. So he took the 3 girls, and Joey stayed at me. Well, I had to record radios out, and I said, when you get there, call me. I'm going to give you a howl, have the girls do a scream, and we'll go back and forth, see what happens. Well, the howl didn't do nothing, but they screamed. And all of a sudden, there was another scream, and it wasn't the girls. Joey and I were sitting there, and again, his hearing's a lot better than mine. He said, well, Grandpa, that come from over there, not over there where the girls were. And as they did a couple more, then they drove back to camp. And during that time, the screamer from over here was traveling through the woods and seemed to stop where they were. And again, when you look at other primates, the screams are generally a fear factor or a distress type situation. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what it was this morning when I recorded this one. That was about 4 a.m. that one was recorded. Maybe there was something distressing them, so they were screaming through the woods to try to get help, something of that nature. You know, again, the reality is I don't know. This is all speculation on my part for vocalizations. But we have stuff that works in the woods, and we have stuff that doesn't. Trying to figure out why it may work can definitely, I think, help add to the assets of doing the research. Next screen, please. Short calls. These are, again, the ones that don't travel very far. I mean, a grunt is something that, you know, even though it's scary when we hear it because we don't know what it means, it's not traveling that far. Again, you go back to even the humans. I mean, Mama can call you and you're going to come home, but if Mama's chewing your butt out, the neighbors ain't hearing it half a mile away. You know, and that's the type of thing I look at with this. So these next two are something that, again, is classified as a short call. This first one was recorded in, again, my research area. Now, a lot of people will talk about hearing these roars, which I do believe can be aggressive, but nobody was in the woods that night. So again, I kind of wonder at times, maybe this is a territorial type thing. I don't know, but go ahead and play that one, please. There we go. By God, that for whatever reason is not coming out, and I apologize for that. But it was some different roars. I mean, when I do this work, folks, I'm not usually putting it on speakers and stuff. I'm doing it on a set of a headphone. You know, so that didn't come out very well, and it was distant. But it was an area that we've gotten those type of vocalizations for. In our research area, I called Pine Ridge. I don't know what it is about Pine Ridge, but when we set up parabolics pointing that direction, we've gotten some of our most odd and weird vocalizations that we get from over in Pine Ridge. This next one was recorded in the outskirts of a state park in Arkansas. It's a little known state park called the Crater Diamond State Park. It's gonna be a quick one. There's only one, but it's a grunt. If nothing else, I'll have her play it twice. Go ahead and do the second one, please. Do it again, please. You know, just kind of, you know, and again, it's not a long distance vocalization. It also didn't have the push that the roaring vocalization does. So I got a sneaky feeling that's, again, one of those where there might be a young one kind of adding up and it's kind of annoying. I mean, I know my dad used to, and I knew what it meant. You know, he didn't have to talk anymore. And with that type of grunt, I think that's what it is it's more of an annoyance than anything else. You know, that's one of those that's reported a lot when people have these sightings that they just end up running into them. They're hiking down this trail and they come up on the Bigfoot and the Bigfoot looks at them and goes, ugh, and turns and walks back into the woods. I don't believe that was aggression. I have no doubt if you're not prepared for it, it would scare the snot out of you. But again, I don't think that was an actual aggressive type vocalization. It was more of an annoyance, like, you ain't supposed to be here, and they move on. Next screen, please. Okay, now this is something that is evolving for me as a researcher. Knocks is the most common thing that we hear throughout everywhere that is suspected to be Bigfoot vocalizations. Now, first of all, just because we use a stick on a tree to knock, there is very little evidence that that is what they are doing. And the reason why I say that is anybody, and I'll challenge anybody in the room, walk through the woods, pick up a stick, hit a tree, and see what happens. 99.9% of the time it's rotted, it's going to crack, and it ain't going to make no noise nowhere. You know, to find good solid sticks in the woods to hit a tree is slim. So if they were doing it the same way we are, there would be tons of sightings of them walking around with a big club. You know, I go out in the woods, if I want to knock, I got to bring a big club. And also when we are encountering some of these, they seem to reply really quick after we've done a reply to them. When I first started researching my area, excuse me, I didn't ever do anything besides sit out in the woods. Back in 2015, I recorded them mimicking me at camp. So if they're mimicking me, game on, boys, because now I'm going to mimic you. That's when we started doing return knocks and return vocalizations. We've gotten several times since 2015 what we call knock-knock games. If they're in the area, we let them start to knock and we reply. And some of that has gotten really interesting. We've gotten several different things that have come out of it. This first audio that's going to play on the screen was taken in our research area. Now this has done several things. We have had where one knock, two knocks, you know, that type of thing, and had some fairly good success with it. Then during the progression of the knock-knock games, then we got some real rapid responses. And I mean, in all honesty, it sounds like it's a semi-automatic rifle being shot. But it's not a rifle. And you know, it's almost like they're trying to catch us at doing that. And I'll get into more of that later, because I do believe our knocking sticks have a certain tone and they can hear the difference on it. From that, it went into one area where there was two knocks, one right after the other, but two different tones with it, kind of like a bum, 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 bum. And, you know, we've recorded that. We've had it happen more than once. And in one of the areas, especially that we call Scotty's, we've had a lot of knock-knock games in that area. This night, for whatever reason, we were in an area that we call Tired Ridge. Now, we just use that so that we know where it's at when we're talking amongst the researchers. I call it Tired Ridge for one reason. The landowner next to the land that we've got permission to research on, they have a bunch of motorcycle trails on their property. And when they get a flat tire, have to change the motorcycle tire, they hang it on the fence post on the property line. So it's Tired Ridge. You know, I mean, nothing, you won't find it on a map by any means. But this night that we started, the vocalization or the sounds that you're going to hear, there's going to be some spots in between where it stops. That's for me to be able to do a little bit of talking, but this all happened one night in less than a 6-hour period when it came to knocks. Now, again, take a listen at the different stuff that's involved in here, and this, for whatever reason that night, really, really evolved into where it's become. Go ahead with the vocalization or the audio track, please. That's how it usually starts. And in this, I actually thought at first it was a gunshot because it was just so repeated. Then what we did is we thought, well, if it's not, let's see if we can do a reply. This is our reply. And that was what we got back. That was our trying to keep up with them. Now, this time they did 5 knocks. I didn't follow suit. The first time we overlapped one, but there was 2 and 2. And again, it didn't reply for another hour. Then again, that was a double tone, double knock. We got it just a little too loud, I think, that's causing it. This one here, we were just sitting talking. Now listen to the background, because it's faint, but it's there. Hear that boom, boom. It'll do it again, because we're going to reply knock here. You know, again, that night, the knock-knock game took a whirl. Now, this was back in the spring of 2017. This is the first time I've talked or put anything together on that last set of real deep knocks, if you will. But the funny part is that night when Bernie and I were at camp, it sounded faint. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it was or how it was. You know, to this day, I'm not even going to try to say that it was some sort of knock. I don't know what it was. Unfortunately, this is the first time I've recorded that, and I haven't been able to record it since. Not that I won't, it just hasn't been happening. You know, so the third part of that, where they weren't knocking back or the rapid, we've had dealt with that several times. But that last part where it was so deep, and it sounded so far, but knowing what I do about how sounds travel, I really got the feeling that it was the closest it was all night was during that time frame. Now, again, there was 3 different tones of knocks during that, the double tone, the double knock. The first one, the rapid fire, when you look at it on a spectrogram, it was the same one that started that game that night. They started off, they had the same starting point. It was one sound. That tone did not change during those. Then the second batch that come in was that double knock, double tone. Boom, boom. We tried after that one, and again, we couldn't get it. Nothing more. So most of the time when we screw up and they catch us at screwing up, no, it's us. We don't have no more activity with them that night. So it makes a person wonder, was this one? Maybe the second one was the second one? Maybe the third was the third one? I don't know. And that put a ton of questions in my mind. Last fall we were involved in Bernie and I went out for an expedition out in western Oklahoma with Big Jim. He put it out of western Oklahoma in a place they called Thumperville. Thumperville is one of those places that, for whatever reason, they seem to be real quiet at. They do not seem to vocalize. And, you know, there's evidence there, there's sightings, there's thermals, there's tracks been casted and all that. And everybody said, well, they're just so quiet. And I can't disagree. If you're listening for the big vocals, they were quiet. But they're not that quiet. Because they have to make the sounds that every animal in the world makes through when they go through the woods. You have to hear some footfalls if you're close to their trails. You have to hear the knocks and that type of thing. And that's how they ended up getting busted. Now, again, going through this, we also last Memorial Day, Darren had recorded one of his drop boxes. In about a 3-minute time frame, he had recorded like 8 or 10 knocks. And he sent it to me because, again, I had a recorder not too far from his, and I caught one set of knocks, the double knock that was there. But I didn't catch the others. And I did something then that I've been thinking about doing and I'm continuing to do. I took out all the dead airspace between the knocks. And then I posted the, instead of being a 3-minute, it was like a 5-second. But during that time, by listening to it, you could hear 3, possibly 4 different tones with the knocks. And they weren't all the same here, the same there. It was like they were communicating back and forth using these knocks. And that, again, leads me to my next thing. I really think that what they're hearing, however they're knocking, I don't know, but it has their own unique signature to it. Where it's no different than if, again, you know, when we were kids, if there were 2 mamas that called, one called at 11, one called at 12, we didn't have to hear what we were saying. The tone of their voice would send us home. And I think that's the situation here too. I think that's part of the reason why Bernie and I were running out of success, because our tones hadn't changed. They knew our tones. They knew it was those annoyances that are out in our woods that try to mess with us. And I do think that that's what it was, because recently we've used another knocking stick, a piece of oak that was cut, and we've had responses. We also did some howls for a long time, where I did some howls. And you know, at first we got responses all the time on it, then nothing. Then what I did one night is I just used some crazy, as loud as I could get, howl, bark, whatever. You know, it sounded nasty on the recorder. I will not play it. But nonetheless, it seemed to drag them in. Then we heard a distant howl. I went back to my old howl that I've always had success with. And right afterwards, it sounded like 2 owls were moving through the woods away from us. 2 complete different tones of owls moving away from us. So I suspect we brought them in by changing up our stuff because they couldn't identify us. This next clip, again, is going to be a short one. Part of what we did during the Thumperville expedition is I asked everybody on the team that day to use the same walking stick and hit trees. And we kind of did the Silent Hills project unscientifical, because again, the Western team, a lot of them hadn't experienced of how quicksand drops off. But we had a a young lad out there with us, he was knocking, Big Jim, Dave Mooney. They were all doing different knocks at different locations. And you know, they were the same tone no matter where they were at, depending on who was running the stick. I could match up one set with another set with another set, even though they were 25, 30 minutes apart. I could pick out who was running the stick at the time. I also had to do some clapping that time, including myself. I mean, I'm not going to embarrass them and say that I don't do this stuff, because I do. And the clapping was just as close. So again, does that mean that possibly these knock sounds are claps? They could. I don't know. I don't know what does it. But if you listen to this clip, again, it's a one clap. This was recorded behind our camper. I set a H2 recorder out about 80 yards behind our camper at camp. And this was about 2 o'clock in the morning. Second audio, please. Do it again, please. Now again, you know, you're going to probably think I'm a little crazy, but that's all right, everybody does. One thing I did afterwards, I took out that same recorder. Now it was in my house, it wasn't outside, you know, but I clapped. And I compared the two of them of how the signature comes into being. You know, you can see it on the spectrogram of what it is. And that was the closest thing I could get to that sound that night. There was no way, as cold as it was and as remote as we were, that there was somebody running around in the woods at 2 o'clock in the morning clapping. It just isn't possible. So what was it that made that sound? And that's what I say. They're quiet out there, but they're not too quiet. They're not quiet enough for my recorder. Because I did find a pattern while we were out there, shared it with Big Jim. Next year we get to set things up differently because we got to figure out where they're traveling and how they're traveling through. Next screen. In conclusion, audio alone, just like thermal, just like video, just like sightings, audio alone will never prove the existence of Bigfoot. It just won't, folks. It takes more than that. I mean, I'd hate to think that the only way is by dragging the body out, but you know, for science that might be the way. But if we use audio as another tool, it can be a huge asset to Bigfoot research. Again, we can use it to distinguish where they're coming from, where they're going to. If we can figure out where they're coming from, and if by chance they're going back the same direction, we can zero in on where they might be spending their time when they're in that part of the territory. And you know, that's where, in my opinion, for audio, the money shot will be. Because then we can hear them doing what they naturally do without human interference. That, to me, is the coolest part of this. Don't get me wrong, the screams that we entice out of them, the mimicking that they do when they're around people, that is just super cool. I get goosebumps when I listen to it. I love it. But what do they do when there's not people around? That's the stuff that I want. That's why I keep going out, having Darren and the rest of the MABRC haul my fat button equipment up in the hills where there's most likely to get it. I can't hike up there, but they can definitely get me up there. And that way I can sit and listen to one 4-day weekend expedition. I can listen to 250 hours of audio afterwards, compare it, find out. I keep a written log on everything I do. This recorder was here. If this sound does show up on another recorder 45 minutes later, an hour later, that's all valuable data that we can use in Bigfoot research. And again, audio is easy because it's passive. It's not sticking up a game cam on a tree, which I do still think will work, folks. I just think they've been set up in the right time when they're there. It's less invasive than the video because, again, we got IR lights at night and all that. There's no lights on the audio. It doesn't care if it's day or night, it's gonna record what's there. And I have realized that even though most Bigfoot researchers focus on the night, there can be a lot of cool audio collected during the daytime. It's not as often at night because, again, the ambient sound is so much less at night than it is during the day. So again, we can get more at night because of that. The equipment that is involved with audio is actually pretty doggone cheap. You can go to Walmart and pick up a $60 recorder and you're in business. You know, you don't have to go out, you know, and again, I appreciate the ones that do, the big thermal cameras, you know, spending $2,000, $3,000. I don't have that. You know, but if I put my audio with his video and it shows something, now we got two pieces of evidence instead of one piece of evidence. You know, one thing about audio is that it does require a ton of time to do the review. I am either, what do you want to call, lucky enough or unfortunate enough to be disabled and don't work. So I can wear headphones 6-8 hours a day. There's times I think my wife thinks maybe there should be surgically set on me because I'm in most of the time. Yeah, these are the different audio. You know, this one here, through Walmart or Amazon, you're looking at a $60 unit. And they're cheap to get. You know, the H2, that is a premium as far as I'm concerned recorder because, again, powered mics on it, it does great. That's my standard camp recorder. And then again, the other one is an amplifier that can be hooked up there, and that's what you use on your thermal, isn't it? Yeah. So that he can reach out there better. It's also more of a shotgun mic, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, basically, surrounding area.
Okay, well then it's
this way we can record audio at the same time as we're recording the phone. Back up what we see on the phone.
You bet. And again, you know, I found out that I don't go out anymore without a camp recorder. Because again, if we have an experience at camp, whether it's an expedition or just Bernie and I, we got a great story. Something walked up, we heard it thumping the ground, but if I've got the audio to back it up, there's a little bit more than just a story. You know, altogether, it's going to take a lot of different disciplines and a lot of different equipment to make this happen the best it can. Again, Darren and everybody is talking, I'm so good at this. I'm just taking the time necessary to go through everything. And the more time you spend out here looking, you're going to end up finding it. But it's a dedicated time. You know, I do think that we're going to find out down the road, and I've asked other groups to participate, collect your knocks. I know, boring knock. But if you collect all your knocks from the time and put them together, you can hear the tone differences. I think we may come to a point where we can actually use that to count the number of individuals we might have in the area around us if they're using knocks. Again, I don't know that yet, but I'm working on the data to show it. Next screen. Again, that pretty well ends what I was going to go for here this weekend. We're going to have us some lunch because we're running a little bit behind time. Then we're going to have a town hall meeting. I'll be up here for the town hall meeting. If you guys got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, because like with any of us, you know, with our little specialties, if you will, or our niches, I send Darren all my video. He knows a lot more about it than I do. He sends me my audio, and that's why I think the MABRC is one of the most successful groups out there. We bring the best of the best. We bring everybody's niches together, and we can go out there and collect some evidence with it. So, thank you.